Hi guys, and welcome back to Raymore Repair. Today we're working on a 1978 CT70 or Trail 70. This sweetheart's been setting for a long time. As you might see, it belongs to a very patient gentleman, and I've had a hold of this thing for about 3 years, and I'm finally getting around to trying to finish it up. I've already put a new exhaust on it. I put a crankshaft in it, various other parts, flywheel. I replaced the source coil, this one right here, the source coil, and I'm getting ready to put a set of points and condenser in it. And I thought I'd turn on the camera and get you guys caught up on this thing. All right, we're going to go ahead and remove the points. I've already got the condenser out. These solder to the top of the condenser, all three of these do. It's already out, and I was testing my points. My points test crappy. It's a brand new set of points, but they are a set from a foreign land that sells stuff relatively cheaply and has questionable quality in a lot of cases. And these have questionable quality. They just don't work like they should. So we're going to replace them. Alrighty, we got our wire and two washers on the top of that. You wiggle them, they make contact, but just going up and down, just open and close, they don't always make contact. And these have never ran, so they are kind of colossal. Now this is what we're going to be putting in it. These are Honda points, 30202, 041, 015. And we're going back to stock OEM points. Everything on this thing is kind of cruddy, as you can imagine, looking at it. The man who owned this, he wrote it as a kid, or his children wrote it, and now his grandkids are big enough to write it. So we're trying to get this ready to go for Christmas. Now, I have had this thing for over 3 years. And I've worked on it part of the time. I've waited to find parts for it some of the time. Now these points are readily available from your Honda dealer. But some of the other parts we needed are not. Tried forever to get an original stator plate because I just don't like these aftermarket coils. And I couldn't find one, so we put a coil on it, bought a rebuild kit. This is the only part we really needed off of it. I suspect that this coil, which was manufactured before 1978, is probably in better condition than the new one, the new aftermarket one. So it's still in there. This is a lighting coil. This is the source coil for the ignition. Put our points wire on. I know you can see my hand. Flat washer. Lock washer. Scoot that back up, scoot that back down. Get my nut started here. See if we can get all this to set in here about the right way. The flywheel goes over this, so we gotta make sure none of our wires are in the way of it. If everything stays like that, we should be fine. All right. Now these wires will come down here. We need to make sure this one stays off of the flywheel once it's installed here. I think we're going to try to run it up underneath that coil. We'll take another look at it after we get the condenser in. We also got a new condenser. It's the 30250-041-005. I'm going to screw the holes in my condenser down. Get that mounted. It sets down in the hole there. It kind of positions itself. This one we didn't tighten very tight because we have to adjust these points after the flywheel's on. This we're going to tighten down. Now I do not have the little pad that goes in here to lubricate the points cam. And we're going to set this up for more or less testing purposes. Then I'll go back in and put that in. I got the right flywheel puller and everything, so it's not a hard job to do. Now I'd like for these to be a little cleaner, and this wire on this coil has insulation on it. So we need to peel back that sprayed on insulation until we get down to the bare wire. I'm going to use a piece of emery cloth and try to clean the insulation off this wire. It's kind of changing colors there, so we know we're getting it cleaned up. Now let's use our meter and see if we got any results from it. See if I can actually get this where you can read it and see what I'm touching. That might work. All right, if we touch the ground here and then touch the wire, we should get a reading. 0.16, 0.18. It's probably pretty good on a source coil. Yep, so we know the insulation's off there. I'll show you. If I'm back here on the insulation, I don't get anything. It's real sketchy. But if I'm up here on the bare wire now, I do get something. So we should be able to pull some AC voltage out of that. I don't want no complaining about my soldering skills because I already know. I wouldn't even call them skills. That's what I know. All right, let's get some solder on that. Make a decent connection. Like I say, I know this soldering skills you're going to see here are questionable, but it's what I got. I don't know why I can't even see that very good. There, I got some solder under it. I think I'd rather have a bit more up here on this side. Alrighty, we'll let that cool down and see what we got. The main thing that happened to this thing is somebody wanted to get it running, so they went to change the points, and with the flywheel on here, they were trying to break it loose, so they stuck a screwdriver in here to hold it still, and they demolished this coil and also one of the magnets inside the original flywheel. And this stuff's kind of tough to chase down and get it worth the money. I mean, if you want to spend a bunch of money, you can find them all day long. But that's not the route I wanted to take. Even though this isn't mine, I still didn't want to take that route. Put our washer on. In the process, they also mushroomed the end of the crankshaft so bad that I couldn't get enough good threads back there. So it was a choice of either replacing the crankshaft or having somebody weld it up and then rethread it. Since I didn't know how good the bottom end of the engine was, I decided to go ahead and replace the crankshaft. I found a very low mileage used one and put it in here. Check the main bearing, the connecting rod bearings and everything, and they're all good. Now then we're going to set our points. right now, she's pointless. They're set way too wide. I don't know if I can get in here to see what I'm doing or not. Not sure I can. Let's get another light in here. Set it about there. And what you see in here, this is the actual points right here. This is the adjuster screw up here. So yeah, you can kind of see it. Let me scoot this over just a touch. No, right's better. There we go. That's better. I want to crack that back just a little bit. Let me get a straight screwdriver. We're starting to break open there. I don't know if you can actually see that or not, but the points are starting to open right there. I'm going to open them just a touch more. Then I'm going to tighten it down so they stay in place. There, they're closed. There, they're opening. That'll work for testing. I've set up a ton of these engines. Used to do a lot of them. Don't do so much of them anymore. And that's going to be a good enough point gap to see if we got spark or not. Alrighty, our key's on, our kill switch is on. Let's turn the light off for a second. There we go. Let you adjust your eyes. Get this bent somewhere near right to see it on the opposite side of the spark plug. And we still don't have spark. I found a wire that wasn't plugged in. The coil wire, the main ignition coil only has one wire on it outside of the high tension wire, and it was not connected under the seat. So with that said, we're going to put the flywheel back on and give this thing another whirl here and see what we get. Let me get you where you can see. I'm going to turn the light off again. And you should be able to see right here where my thumb is. I've got the wire held down. Oh, you see that? That is some super cool spark. Man, let me do that again. Could you see it in the camera? Yowzers, it got me. I hope you can see that. It bit me pretty hard. I'm really not going to do that again. So we got spark. Woohoo! It's the little things. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to put a spark plug cap on this thing. Then we are going to hook up a fuel tank to it, to the carburetor. Actually, we'll just spray some carb cleaner in it first and see if we can get it to do anything. We don't have a throttle cable, so we'll see what we got. All right, guys, let me get you caught up. I didn't realize my camera battery had died. We got a spark plug cap on it. We got that taken care of. My bottle, my gas bottle, it died of boredom. The petcock on it, the shutoff, it was just seeping gas everywhere. So we had to get around that. We got that fixed. Then, let me take you around to the other side real quick. Once we got that fuel problem fixed, then this deal, which is the old petcock that goes on the side of the carburetor, it wouldn't flow fuel. And this is riveted together. But I had a new carburetor from a country that doesn't make the best parts in the world, but they sell them cheap. And that petcock did bolt onto this. I was going to use this whole carburetor, but when it mounts, the fuel valve's on the wrong side. And I wanted to keep this thing a little more original than that. So this is the original carburetor, but I took the valve off of the new one and put on it, and that's working. So right now, we had this thing on a bottle. Had to fix the bottle because the petcock on it started leaking fuel really bad. Like I say, I hadn't used it in probably a year. And then we got it hooked up. So now we're going to try to start this thing up and see what we got. The other thing is the throttle cable was sticky. It would not come down. The throttle itself, the cable, and it had been pinched sometime in the steering stop. So what I did was I just cut it off because I got a new one coming anyway, and that way I can work the throttle by just pulling on the cable. So that's how we're going to control the throttle. We're going to see if this thing will start up. All right, we'll choke this thing, and then we'll kick it over by hand and hope I don't break my wrist. Choke's on. Let's give it a shot. Oh yeah, throttle doesn't work. Let's give it a little less choke here. Keeps trying to leave me. The way I have it strapped down is a little precarious when you start kicking on it. We'll choke it again. And we'll tighten this strap over here up a little bit so it sets straighter. There, that's better. I can't get to the throttle cable fast enough. Let's unchoke and see if it'll start now. It's a bit precarious. Alrighty, I think we need some throttle while we're cranking. There, now what are you guys looking at? Because I'm moving everything all over the place. That's not too bad. It's a little odd with the light, but not too bad. There we go. This thing has been parked since about 1985. It finally lives. I am happy. This thing is loose underneath the engine. It's doing some rattling. I don't have the bolts tightened up yet. This muffler is also from a foreign land that makes a lot of stuff, not very well, but sells it cheap. That's why we got paint burning off it. And of course the headlights burn out. They typically are on these. They have a balanced charging system, and if the battery is bad, or it's ran without a battery, then it just pops all the light bulbs. Now talking about lights, this does have a loop here on the battery cable, This is the battery cables coming down, and then it loops around here. And this loop is so it won't run whenever there's no battery in it. But it will run with an absolutely crappy battery in it. And that's kind of what's going on here. The lights don't work except for the turn signals, and the turn signals only work because they're not on all the time. So they probably were never used while this thing had a terribly bad battery. I'm going to adjust the idle mixture. I'm pretty happy with that. Thanks for watching. God bless.